The wind screamed like a dying animal across the mountain pass, but inside the luxury ski lodge, Mr. Sterling's voice cut through the chaos even louder. "Sit down, Daniels. Nobody asked for your trailer park opinion." Caleb stood in the doorway, snow melting off his worn jacket, his calloused hands gripping the frame. Behind him, the blizzard had turned the world into a white void. In front of him, 37 students huddled by the fireplace, drinking hot chocolate and laughing nervously about their adventure. 37. There should have been 38. "Sir, Raven's not here," Caleb said, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his chest. "I counted twice. She's still out there." Mr. Sterling didn't even look up from his phone. "Ms. Wolf is probably in the bathroom. Stop being dramatic and sit down before I write you up for causing panic. I saw her get off the bus before we evacuated. She was looking for cell signal near the—" I said sit down. Sterling's face flushed red. "I've been teaching for 15 years. I know how to count students. Unlike you, I actually graduated high school without needing a farm waiver for absences during harvest season." A few kids snickered. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Outside, the temperature was dropping to 30 below zero. Every minute Raven spent in that storm was a minute closer to death. Caleb looked at the emergency exit window behind the vending machines. Then he looked back at Sterling, who had already dismissed him, turning to comfort a crying cheerleader. The farm boy made his choice. He grabbed his survival pack and walked to the window. "Daniels, if you leave this building, you'll be expelled." Caleb popped the emergency latch. The alarm shrieked, but it was nothing compared to the roar of wind that blasted through the opening. "Then expel me," Caleb said, and dropped into the whiteout. Behind him, in the warm safety of the lodge, nobody knew that the quiet farm boy had just walked into hell to save the daughter of the most dangerous man in the state. Nobody except the storm. And somewhere out there, freezing and lost, Raven Wolf was about to discover that her father's leather-clad army wasn't the only thing standing between her and death. For hours earlier, the senior class ski bus had been a rolling party. Caleb Daniels sat in the second row, alone, sharpening his whittling knife against a whetstone. The rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape was his meditation, drowning out the bass-heavy music blasting from the back, where the popular kids held court. "Can you not do that?" Madison Shin wrinkled her nose as she passed his seat. "It's like super creepy serial killer vibes." Caleb didn't respond. He tested the blade against his thumbnail, sharp enough to split a hair. He folded it carefully and tucked it into his pack alongside the other essentials: paracord, waterproof matches, emergency blanket, fire starter, compass, and a dog-eared copy of Wilderness Survival his grandfather had given him before the cancer took him. The book's inscription read, "Caleb, the woods don't care about your grades or your bank account. They only care if you're smart enough to respect them. Pops. Attention, seniors." Mr. Sterling stood at the front of the bus, his polo shirt and khakis screaming, "I used to be cool in college. We're about 2 hours from Pinecrest Resort. I know the weather report mentioned some light snow, but I've been taking this trip for 10 years and—" His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Anyway, as I was saying, we'll be fine. The resort has heated chalets, a fully stocked lodge, and—" He checked his phone again. "And I need everyone to please keep the noise down. Some of us are trying to work." In the back of the bus, Raven Wolf wasn't laughing with the others. She sat by the window, her black leather jacket, real leather, not the cheap synthetic stuff the other girls wore, draped over the seat beside her like a barrier. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her combat boots were propped against the seat in front of her, earning glares from the boy sitting there. "Do you mind?" Trevor Richardson turned around, his ski team jacket crisp and expensive. "Some of us actually care about keeping things clean." Raven didn't move her feet. "Some of us actually don't care what you think." "Of course you don't." Trevor's smile was poison. "Must be nice having your dad's biker gang fight all your battles. Do they teach respect in motorcycle clubs? Or just how to intimidate people?" Raven's hand twitched toward her pocket. Not for a weapon, just her phone, but the instinct was there. The instinct that came from growing up in a world where respect was earned through strength, not inherited through trust funds. "Say that again," she said quietly. "Or what? You'll have your daddy's scary friends." "Trevor, shut up." Madison elbowed him. "Her dad literally owns half the city. Do you want to end up on a milk carton?" Trevor laughed, but it was nervous. "Whatever. Just keep your dirty boots off my seat." Raven pulled her feet down and turned to the window. Through her reflection, she could see Caleb in the front rows, oblivious to the drama, testing knots with his paracord. She'd never spoken to him. Not once in 4 years of high school. But she'd noticed him, the way everyone noticed the outliers. The scholarship kid who showed up to school smelling like hay and diesel, who ate lunch alone in the library, who aced every biology and environmental science test, but barely scraped by in subjects that didn't matter on a farm. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. Grizz, have fun, baby girl. Call me when you get there. Love you. She typed back, love you too, Dad. 3 hours later, when the storm hit, that text would be the last thing on her phone before the battery died. The blizzard came out of nowhere. One moment, the sky was overcast but manageable. The next, it was like driving through a snow globe being shaken by an angry giant. Mr. Sterling? The bus driver's voice cracked over the intercom. We need to pull over. Visibility is 0 and the road's icing up. We're only 30 minutes from the resort, Sterling protested, looking up from his phone. Can't you just? The bus lurched sideways. Someone screamed. Caleb's head snapped up just in time to see the world tilt. The bus was sliding, not spinning, just gliding smoothly and inevitably toward the shoulder of the road. The driver pumped the brakes, but physics didn't care. The right wheels caught the soft snow berm, and the entire vehicle tipped, settling at a 45-degree angle into the ditch. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then the panic started. Everyone calmed down. Sterling shouted, which only made it worse. Stay in your seats. The driver is calling for help. My phone doesn't have service. Mine either. Are we going to die? Caleb was already moving. He pulled his pack on and made his way to the front, fighting against the tilted floor. Sir, we need to evacuate. The engine's still running and we're half buried. If the exhaust gets blocked, we'll have carbon monoxide. I'm aware, Daniels. Sterling's hands were shaking as he tried his own phone. Everyone, grab your bags. We're hiking to that ranger station we passed a mile back. A mile? In this. Madison looked ready to cry. It's that or freeze on the bus. Move. The emergency exit hissed open, and students began filing out into the screaming wind. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees in the last hour. Caleb could feel it trying to suck the warmth out of his body even through his layers. He counted heads as they passed. 35, 36, 37. Where was Raven? He pushed back through the crowd, ignoring Sterling's shouts, and climbed back onto the bus. Her leather jacket was gone from the seat. Her bag was missing. She'd already gotten off. Caleb jumped back into the snow. The line of students was barely visible, a shuffling mass of colorful ski jackets moving like a caterpillar through the white. He ran up and down the line, checking faces. No Raven. Raven, he shouted, but the wind ate his voice. Raven Wolf. Caleb, come on. Someone grabbed his arm. Madison, her teeth already chattering. We have to stay together. Did you see Raven get off the bus? What? I don't know. I can't see anything. Please, we have to go. The ranger station appeared like a mirage, a squat brown building with smoke coming from the chimney. Sterling was already at the door, ushering students inside. Caleb was the last one in. He counted again as the door slammed shut, cutting off the wind. 37. Sir. Caleb's voice cut through the noise. Raven Wolf isn't here. Sterling did a quick visual scan, his face pale. She's probably in the bathroom. Everyone, find a spot to warm up. Driver, keep trying dispatch. There is no bathroom, Caleb said, looking around the single-room station. And she's not here. I counted 3 times. Then she must have gone back to the bus for something. She'll catch up. In this storm, she'll die in 30 minutes. Don't be dramatic. But Sterling's voice wavered. Everyone, did anyone see Raven Wolf? Speak up. Silence, broken only by the howl of wind against the windows. Oh God. Sterling's face went from pale to green. Oh God. If something happens to her, her father will. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. No signal. Damn it. Does anyone have signal? A chorus of no's. Caleb was already checking his gear. Matches, check. Fire starter, check. Emergency blanket. What are you doing? Sterling grabbed his shoulder. You're not going back out there. Someone has to. The authorities will come. We just have to wait. The roads are closed. You heard the radio before we crashed. Caleb shrugged off the teacher's hand. Every minute we wait is a minute she's freezing to death. If you leave, you'll die too. I'm responsible for your safety. You were responsible for counting your students. Caleb's voice was ice. You failed. I'm not failing. He walked to the emergency window near the back, the one without a lock. Daniels, if you leave this building, you'll be expelled. You'll lose your scholarship. Your family will. Caleb popped the latch. The alarm shrieked. Then expel me. He dropped into the storm, The whiteout was a living thing, clawing at Caleb's face, trying to force its way into his lungs. He pulled his scarf up over his nose and mouth, breathing through the fabric to pre-warm the air. His eyes watered instantly, tears freezing on his eyelashes. He couldn't see more than 3 feet ahead, but he could track. The snow was coming down heavy, but it hadn't completely covered the shuffled mess of footprints leading from the bus to the ranger station. Caleb followed them backward, looking for any deviation. There, a single set of prints breaking off from the main group, heading northeast toward a cluster of pine trees. The prints were small, boot size 7, maybe 8. The tread pattern was fashionable rather than functional, designer hiking boots, the kind you bought at the mall, not a camping store. Raven. The trail was already half filled with fresh snow. In another 10 minutes, it would be gone completely. Caleb started running. His grandfather's voice echoed in his head. In a storm, people don't think straight. They panic. They wander. You have to think like they're thinking. What would make sense to someone who's cold and scared? Cell phone signal. She'd been trying to get a signal. The highest point near the bus was northeast, a small rise about 300 yards away. If she'd climbed it looking for bars on her phone and then gotten disoriented in the whiteout. Caleb adjusted his trajectory, following the logic rather than the disappearing footprints. The wind was a constant roar, drowning out everything else. His exposed skin, just the thin strip between his hat and scarf, was already numb. He knew the progression. Numb, then painful, then numb again. That third numbness was frostbite setting in. He'd seen it on calves born too early in spring. The blackened ears and tail tips that eventually fell off. He pushed the thought away and kept moving. 200 yards. 300. The footprints were completely gone now, but he crested the rise and found what he was looking for. Disturbed snow near a large boulder. Someone had stood here recently, sheltered from the worst of the wind. And then the tracks led down the other side, into the tree line. Wrong direction. Away from the ranger station. She was lost. Caleb followed the trail into the forest, where the canopy provided fractional relief from the wind. But the temperature was still dropping, and nightfall was coming. He could feel it in the quality of the light. The storm gray was darkening toward charcoal. He found the first drop of blood on a broken branch. Not much, just a smear, like she'd fallen and caught herself. Then another, a few yards later. Raven, he shouted, knowing it was useless. Raven Wolf. The forest swallowed his voice. And then he saw her. She was curled at the base of a massive spruce tree, wedged into the hollow between the roots. Her designer leather jacket, meant for city streets, not survival, was dusted with snow. Her hands were bare. She'd lost her gloves somewhere. And her face. Caleb's heart stopped. Her lips were blue. Her skin was paper white. And her eyes, when they opened at his approach, were unfocused and confused. Hey. He dropped to his knees beside her. Raven, it's Caleb. From school. I'm getting you out of here. Caleb. Her voice was slurred, thick. What are you cold? Just want to sleep. Stage 2 hypothermia. Maybe stage 3. You can't sleep. Look at me. Raven, look at me. Her eyes rolled toward his face, but didn't quite focus. You are a farm boy. Why were you here? To save your stubborn rear end. Come on. We need to move. He tried to pull her up, but she fought him weakly, pushing at his chest. No. Leave me alone. Fine here. Just 5 more minutes. The paradoxical undressing would come next, if it hadn't already started. He could see her jacket was unzipped, her scarf loosened. The dying brain's last confused attempt at cooling down when it was actually freezing to death. Caleb grabbed her face in both hands, forcing her to look at him. Raven Wolf, daughter of Grizz, president of the Iron Wolves MC. You are not dying in these woods. Do you understand me? Something flickered in her eyes. My dad. Yeah, your dad. He's probably already on his way. But we have to stay alive until he gets here. Can you do that? She nodded weakly. Good. Arms around my neck. Now. She complied, her movements clumsy and slow. Caleb got her onto his back and stood, feeling her weight settle against him. She was lighter than he expected, all leather jacket and attitude with not much substance underneath. He took 3 steps back the way he'd come before the brutal truth hit him. He couldn't make it back to the ranger station. It was at least half a mile through the storm, and Raven was deadweight, carrying her through the whiteout, with visibility near zero and the wind trying to knock them over with every step. They both died trying. His grandfather's voice again. If you can't get out, get down. If you can't get warm, get dry. If you can't get dry, get buried. Caleb scanned his surroundings. The spruce tree where he'd found Raven was good. The branches formed a natural shelter, keeping most of the snow off the ground beneath. But it wasn't enough. He needed to build something better. A quinzhee, a snow cave. He built dozens on the farm, teaching himself from the survival manual. Never with someone's life depending on it. Raven, I need you to stay awake. Can you talk to me? Her head lolled against his shoulder. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about the iron wolves. Dad's scary. A faint smile. But he makes pancakes. Every Sunday. With chocolate chips. Yeah? What else? Sings bad. In the shower. Mom used to laugh. Her voice was fading. Caleb worked faster. He found a spot where the snow had drifted deep against a fallen log. Perfect. He shrugged off his pack, propped Raven against the log. She sagged like a rag doll, and started piling snow. The quinzhee technique was simple in theory. Pile snow into a dome, let it sinter, the ice crystals bond together. For an hour, then hollow it out. But they didn't have an hour. Caleb piled anyway, his movements mechanical and efficient. Pile, pack. His hands were numb inside his gloves, but he didn't stop. 20 minutes later, he had a dome roughly 6 feet in diameter and 4 feet high. Not enough time for proper sintering, but it would have to do. He pulled out his collapsible camping shovel and started hollowing out the inside, working from a small entrance hole. The work generated heat. He was sweating despite the cold, which was dangerous in its own way. Wet equals dead in winter. He scraped and dug, creating a space just big enough for 2 people to lie down. Then he gathered pine boughs from nearby, the ones that still had needles, and layered them on the floor for insulation. Raven, we're moving. Stay with me. He dragged her into the quinzhee. She was barely conscious, murmuring something about her mother. Caleb blocked the entrance with his pack and loose snow, leaving a small ventilation hole near the top. The difference was immediate. The wind noise cut to almost nothing. The temperature, while still below freezing, felt tropical compared to the exposed storm. Caleb pulled out his emergency candle, a thick, long-burning survival candle that could put out heat for hours. He lit it with shaking hands and set it in a depression he'd carved into the wall. The tiny flame gave off a surprising amount of warmth. Then came the hard part. Raven, I need to take your jacket off. Her eyes opened, suddenly sharp with fear. What? No. Get away from me. Your jacket's wet. What means cold? I have to get you into dry layers. She tried to push him away, but she had no strength. Don't touch me. I'm not going to hurt you. Caleb kept his voice calm, clinical. I have a drywall liner in my pack. It'll hold heat better than leather. But you have to trust me. She stared at him for a long moment, her blue eyes searching his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she went limp. Okay, she whispered. He worked quickly, removing her wet jacket and the soaked sweater underneath. Her skin was ice cold, pale as moonlight. He pulled his spare wool liner over her head. It was huge on her, hanging past her knees, and then wrapped his emergency blanket around both of them. Why are you? She was shivering violently now, which was actually a good sign. Shivering meant her body was still trying to generate heat. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. I know you're a student at my school. That's enough. Everyone else, they hate me. Because of my dad. Because I'm different. I don't hate you. You should. Her voice was getting stronger as the warmth seeped in. I've never been nice to you. Never even talked to you. You've never been mean to me either. That puts you ahead of most people. She laughed, a weak sound. The bar is really that low. Welcome to my world. They were quiet for a moment, the only sound the whistle of wind through the ventilation hole. We're going to die here, aren't we? Raven asked. No. Caleb adjusted the emergency blanket, making sure it covered both of them. We're going to survive until morning. Then we're going to walk out of here and give Mr. Sterling the worst day of his life. My dad's going to kill him. Your dad's going to have to get in line. Another weak laugh. Then Caleb, yeah. Thank you. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and added more pine boughs to their nest. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, 2 teenagers from opposite worlds huddled together for warmth and waited for dawn. The candle flame danced, casting shadows on the curved walls of the quinzhee. Raven's shivering had finally stopped, replaced by a warmth that had nothing to do with the candle and everything to do with shared body heat. Tell me something, she said suddenly. Why do they call you farm boy, like it's an insult? Caleb was quiet for a moment, checking the ventilation hole to make sure it hadn't blocked. Because it is. To them. That's stupid. Is it? I show up to school smelling like animals. My clothes are secondhand. I miss days during harvest. I don't have money for ski trips or prom or any of the stuff that matters to them. None of that stuff matters. Raven shifted, trying to get comfortable in the cramped space. Trust me, I have all the money I could want, and I'm still miserable. Poor little rich girl. Poor little biker princess, she corrected. Do you know what it's like having everyone terrified of your last name? Teachers give me A's because they're scared of my dad. Boys won't ask me out because they think the iron wolves will kill them. Girls won't be my friend because I'm dangerous. Are you dangerous? She considered. I know how to shoot. I know how to fight. I know which of my dad's friends are soldiers and which are just hangers-on. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. Define deserve it. Trevor Richardson grabbed mine, but last year at a party. I broke his nose. Caleb raised an eyebrow. I remember that. He said he walked into a door. He did. I was holding the door. A laugh escaped before Caleb could stop it. Raven grinned, and for the first time, he saw the real girl behind the leather armor. What about you? She asked. What's the farm boy story? Besides the obvious. The obvious being that I'm poor and smell like cow manure? I was going to say obviously competent in wilderness survival, but sure, we can go with the manure thing. Caleb checked the candle, still half left, which was good. They had a long night ahead. My grandfather taught me, he said finally. After my dad died, Grandpa raised me and my mom on the farm. He said the world was getting too soft, too dependent on technology. Said a man should be able to survive with nothing but a knife and his wits. Sounds intense. He was intense. But he was right. When he got sick, all the technology in the world couldn't save him. Cancer doesn't care about your cell phone or your GPS or your fancy doctors. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived the way he wanted. Died the way he wanted. On his land. In his bed. With his family around him. Caleb's voice went quiet. We're losing the farm. Thanks for closing in 2 weeks. Mom's been working double shifts at the diner, but it's not enough. Nothing's enough. Raven was silent for a long moment. That's why you're on scholarship. Yeah, 1 more semester and I graduate. Get a job, maybe go to community college. Help Mom buy a small house somewhere. That's it. That's the dream. Community college and a small house. Not everyone gets to dream big, Raven. Some of us just try to survive. The words hung in the air between them. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing, but inside their snow cave, it was almost peaceful. I'm sorry, Raven said again. For all of it. For never talking to you. For judging you. For everything. You didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything right either. She shifted closer, and Caleb tried very hard not to notice how perfectly she fit against his side. Everyone at school, they see me and they see my dad's leather, my dad's reputation, my dad's money. Nobody sees me. I see you. The words came out before he could stop them. Raven's breath caught. What do you see? She whispered. Caleb looked at her, really looked. Dark hair falling out of its bun. Blue eyes that were sharp and scared and brave all at once. A girl who wore armor because the world had taught her she needed it. I see someone who's stronger than she thinks, he said. Someone who's lonely but won't admit it. Someone who probably hates ski trips but came anyway because she's trying to fit in. I really do hate skiing, Raven admitted. My dad made me come. Said I needed to have normal teenage experiences. As if there's anything normal about me. There's nothing normal about any of us. That's what makes us interesting. She smiled, a real smile this time, not the sharp defensive thing she wore at school. You're not what I expected, Caleb Daniels. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone quiet. Boring. Simple. I am quiet. But you're not boring. And you're definitely not simple. She looked at the Quincy walls, the carefully arranged pine boughs, the ventilation hole precisely positioned. You built a house out of snow, with your bare hands, in a blizzard, to save someone you don't even know. I know you now. Yeah. Her voice was soft. You do. The candle flickered, and for a moment, Caleb thought it might go out. But it steadied, burning low and warm. Can I ask you something? Raven said. Sure. Why did you really come after me? You could have died. You still might die. So what? Caleb thought about all the easy answers. Because it was the right thing to do. Because someone had to. Because he couldn't live with himself otherwise. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than that. Because I've spent 4 years being invisible, he said. Being the poor kid, the farm kid, the scholarship charity case. And I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of letting the Mr. Sterlings of the world decide who matters and who doesn't. So you're saying I matter? Everyone matters. That's the point. Sterling couldn't be bothered to count properly because you're just the student. But you're not just anything. You're someone's daughter. Someone's friend. Someone's someone. Raven was quiet for a long time. Then, you're going to make me cry, farm boy. Please don't. Your tears will freeze, and that'll just be one more problem. She laughed through the tears that were already forming. Too late. Caleb handed her the dry corner of the emergency blanket. Here. Thanks. She wiped her eyes. You know what's funny? My dad always says the world is full of takers and users. People who want something from him, from us. But you didn't want anything. You just came. I want one thing. What? For both of us to make it out of here alive. Deal. She held out her hand, and they shook on it, their grips firm despite the cold. The wind outside had calmed slightly, or maybe they'd just gotten used to it. The candle burned lower. Caleb checked his watch, 10:47 p.m. They had at least 8 more hours until dawn. Tell me about your dad, he said, trying to keep her talking, keep her alert. The real story, not the rumors. Raven settled back against him. My dad, he's complicated. People think biker gangs are all about drugs and violence and crime. And yeah, some clubs are like that. But the Iron Wolves? Dad built them differently. How so? They're soldiers. Most of them are vets, Iraq, Afghanistan, some Vietnam. Guys who came back and couldn't fit into normal society. Dad gave them purpose. Family. Rules. What kind of rules? No hard drugs. No violence against civilians. No crimes against women or children. You break those rules, you're out. Or worse. Worse. Dad doesn't talk about the or worse. Raven's voice was matter of fact. But I've seen guys disappear. Guys who cross lines they shouldn't have crossed. And that doesn't scare you? It terrifies me. But I also know my dad would die before he let anything happen to me. He's a good man in a bad world. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. What about your mom? You mentioned her, but she's a fighter, Caleb said. After Dad died, she could have given up, sold the farm, moved to the city, lived off welfare. But she didn't. She worked. She taught me to work. She showed me that being poor doesn't mean being weak. She sounds amazing. She is. And she's going to kill me when she finds out I walked into a blizzard. My dad might beat her to it. They both laughed, the sound strange and precious in their snow cave. Caleb, yeah, if we die here, I just want you to know that this is the best conversation I've had in years. We're not dying. But if we do, we're not. She smiled. Okay, farm boy, we're not dying. But when we get out of here, I owe you something. You don't owe me anything. I do. And I always pay my debts. It's a family thing. Before Caleb could respond, Raven's eyes closed, her breathing evening out into sleep. He let her rest, knowing her body needed it to recover. He stayed awake, feeding small sticks to the candle, checking the ventilation, listening to the storm outside diminish degree by degree. Somewhere out there, rescue would be coming. Somewhere out there, Mr. Sterling was probably panicking. Somewhere out there, a biker king was moving heaven and earth to find his daughter. But in here, in this moment, it was just 2 teenagers who'd found something unexpected in the worst of circumstances. Warmth, understanding, connection, and maybe, just maybe, something more. At 11:47 p.m., Grizz's phone rang. He was in the Iron Wolves clubhouse, going over supply routes with his VP, when the unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. He almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually cops or worse, but something made him pick up. Yeah, Mr. Wolf? This is Harold Sterling. I'm a teacher at Mountain View High School. I'm chaperoning your daughter's ski trip in. Where's Raven? Not a question, a command. Sterling's voice cracked. There's been an incident. A blizzard hit, and we had to evacuate the bus and… Where is Raven? We don't know. She's missing. We think she got separated during the evacuation and… The phone exploded in Grizz's hand. Fragments of glass and plastic scattered across the table. Every head in the clubhouse turned. Grizz was 6'5", 270 pounds of muscle and rage. His leather cut was decorated with patches from 3 decades of riding, fighting, and surviving. The patch on his chest read President in bold letters. The patch on his back showed a wolf's head, mouth open in a howl. Right now, that wolf was hunting. Church. His voice shook the walls. Now, the Iron Wolves moved like a military unit, which made sense because most of them were military. Within 2 minutes, 20 men were seated around the table in the back room. Church, where the club's real decisions were made. My daughter is missing on a mountain in a blizzard, Grizz said, his voice deadly calm. The teacher in charge is an incompetent coward. The police won't be able to reach her until the road's clear, which could be tomorrow. We ride tonight, said Axe, the VP. He was bald, scarred, and had killed 3 men in Fallujah with his bare hands. All of us. No, Grizz pulled out a map and spread it on the table. We're 60 miles from Pinecrest. The roads are closed. We'll take the snowmobiles and the modified trucks. Axe, you lead the advance team. 4 sleds, fastest riders. I'll follow with the trucks and heavy equipment. What about the cops? Someone asked. Grizz's smile was wolfish. Let them try to stop us. 30 minutes later, the Iron Wolves were rolling. 4 snowmobiles, custom-built racing sleds with heated handlebars and GPS, screamed out of the compound. Behind them, 3 lifted pickup trucks with winter tires and chains followed, carrying shovels, generators, medical supplies, and enough firepower to start a small war. Grizz rode in the lead truck, his phone pressed to his ear, calling in favors from every contact he had. Sheriff, it's Grizz. My daughter's lost on Pinecrest Mountain. I need you to open the roads. Grizz, I can't. The governor's closed everything north of. I'm not asking. Grizz's voice could have cut steel. You owe me. That thing with your nephew last year? The thing that didn't make the papers? I'm calling in the marker. Open the roads or get out of my way. Silence on the other end. Then, I'll see what I can do. You'll do more than that. And Sheriff, if my daughter's hurt because some lazy teacher couldn't count, there won't be enough of him left to arrest. He hung up and dialed another number. Mayor? Yeah, it's me. I need a favor. By midnight, the Iron Wolves had clearance to move. The governor himself had signed off on it after a concerned citizen made a generous donation to his re-election campaign. Money talked, but fear talked louder. And right now, every official in the state was terrified of what Grizz would do if his daughter didn't come home. The first light of dawn crept through the ventilation hole like a tentative visitor. Caleb opened his eyes. He dozed off sometime around 3 a.m. and immediately checked on Raven. She was still asleep, her face peaceful, her color better than it had been. The violent shivering had stopped. Her breathing was steady. She was going to make it. They both were. The candle had burned out, but the Quincy had retained enough heat to keep them alive. Caleb carefully extracted himself from the emergency blanket and crawled to the entrance. He pushed aside the snow blocking it and poked his head out. The world was transformed. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of pristine white. The sun was just cresting the eastern peaks, turning the snow into a field of diamonds. The sky was blue, achingly, impossibly blue, and in the distance, Caleb could hear engines. Raven. He shook her gently. Wake up. We made it. Her eyes opened, confused at first, then focusing. Caleb? Did we? We survived. Come on, let's get you out of here. He helped her out of the Quincy, and they stood together in the morning light. Raven's designer boots were ruined, her leather jacket was a mess, and her hair looked like a bird's nest. But she was alive, and she was smiling. We actually did it, she said, wonder in her voice. We survived a blizzard. You survived. I just built a snow fort. You saved my life. Before Caleb could respond, the engine noise grew louder. Much louder. 4 snowmobiles crested the ridge, moving fast. They were followed by 3 pickup trucks, all black, all with the Iron Wolves logo on the doors. Raven's face transformed. Dad, the lead snowmobile skidded to a stop 20 feet away, throwing up a wave of powder. The rider pulled off his helmet, revealing a face that could have been carved from granite. Grizz. He was off the sled and running before the engine stopped. Raven met him halfway, and Caleb watched as the terrifying biker king scooped his daughter up like she weighed nothing, holding her tight enough to crack ribs. Baby girl, Grizz's voice broke. I thought. I'm okay, Dad. I'm okay. The other riders were dismounting now, forming a protective circle. Caleb recognized the type. Military bearing, hard eyes, hands that automatically checked for weapons even in civilian clothes. These weren't weekend riders. These were soldiers. Grizz set Raven down, checking her over like a worried parent. Are you hurt? Frostbite. Hypothermia. I'm fine. Dad, I'm fine. Because of him. She pointed at Caleb, who suddenly felt very exposed. 20 pairs of eyes turned his direction. Grizz walked over slowly, each step deliberate. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Scars on his knuckles, tattoos on his neck, eyes that had seen and done things that would give normal people nightmares. You're the farm kid, Grizz said. Yes, sir. You went into a blizzard to find my daughter. Yes, sir. The teacher said you're crazy. Said you should have stayed at the ranger station where it was safe. Caleb met his eyes. Safe for who, sir? Not for Raven. Grizz stared at him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. What's your name, son? Caleb Daniels, sir. Caleb. That's a good name. A strong name. Grizz extended his hand. Thank you for bringing my daughter home. Caleb shook it. Grizz's grip could have crushed stone, but it was gentle, respectful. She's tough, Caleb said. She fought to stay awake all night. Most people would have given up. She's a wolf. We don't give up. Grizz turned to his men. Axe, get the medical kit. I want her checked out. And someone radio ahead. Tell Sterling we're coming. What about the boy? Axe asked. Grizz looked at Caleb. The boy comes with us. He's packed now. The ranger station was chaos when the Iron Wolves arrived. Mr. Sterling had spent the night alternating between panic attacks and desperate phone calls. The police had arrived at dawn, along with a search and rescue team, but the roads were still treacherous. They were preparing to send helicopters when the roar of engines announced a different kind of rescue. Sterling looked out the window and went pale. 20 bikers, 3 trucks, and in the middle of them, Raven Wolf, alive and walking on her own. And beside her, that troublemaker Caleb Daniels. Oh, thank God, Sterling breathed. Then, oh God, because Grizz was walking toward the door, and his face promised violence. The door didn't open. It exploded inward, torn off its hinges by a single kick. Grizz filled the doorway like a natural disaster. Behind him, the Iron Wolves formed a wall of leather and muscle. Every student scrambled backward. One girl screamed, "Which one of you is Sterling?" Grizz's voice could have stripped paint. I am. Sterling tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. Mr. Wolf, I can explain. You lost my daughter. Grizz advanced slowly. You miscounted your students. You ignored the weather warnings. You prioritized your schedule over their safety. And when this young man tried to tell you someone was missing, you threatened to expel him. I was going to the authorities were on their way. I couldn't risk. Couldn't risk what? Grizz roared. Couldn't risk doing your job? Dad, Raven's voice cut through the tension. He's not worth it. Grizz stopped 2 feet from Sterling, close enough that the teacher could smell leather and motor oil and righteous fury. You're right, baby girl. He's not. Grizz turned to the 2 police officers who'd been watching with wide eyes. Officers, I want this man charged with criminal negligence and child endangerment. I want his teaching license revoked, and I want him to never be responsible for another child's safety as long as he lives. Sir, we can't just. Grizz pulled out his phone and dialed. Sheriff? Yeah, it's me. I'm at the ranger station with 2 of your deputies. They're about to tell me they can't arrest the man who almost killed my daughter. You want to explain to them how this is going to work? You put the phone on speaker. The sheriff's voice came through, resigned and tired. Deputies, arrest Mr. Sterling. And call the school board. They're going to want to handle this personally. Sterling's face went from white to green. You can't, my career. I have tenure. You had tenure, Grizz corrected. Now you have handcuffs. The deputies moved in, reading Sterling his rights while the man sputtered protests. The students watched in stunned silence. Caleb felt Raven slip her hand into his. Told you he'd handle it, she whispered. I almost feel sorry for Sterling. Don't. He would have let me die rather than admit he made a mistake. She had a point. Grizz turned to the rest of the students. Anyone else here give Caleb trouble for trying to save Raven? Anyone else think this young man is just a poor farm kid who doesn't matter? Silence. Trevor Richardson tried to make himself smaller, which was hard to do when you were 6'2". That's what I thought. Grizz walked over to Caleb. Son, you got plans for after graduation? Sir. College? Trade school? What's the dream? Caleb hesitated. I was going to work, help my mom save our farm. But the bank's foreclosing. Not anymore. Sir. Grizz pulled out his phone again and made another call. Larry? It's Grizz. You're holding a mortgage on the Daniels farm outside town. How much is owed? A pause while he listened. I'll wire you the full amount this afternoon. Plus interest. Plus a little extra for your trouble. The farm belongs to the Daniels family, free and clear. And Larry, if you or your bank ever threaten that family again, we're going to have a conversation you won't enjoy. He hung up and looked at Caleb. Consider it paid. Caleb's world tilted. I can't accept that. It's too much. You saved my daughter's life. In my world, debts like that get paid. Grizz put a massive hand on Caleb's shoulder. You're a good kid. You're smart, you're skilled, and you've got more courage than most men I've served with. Whatever you want to do with your life, you let me know. The Iron Wolves take care of family. I'm not family, sir. Raven squeezed his hand. You are now. 1 week later, the Daniels farm was saved. The wire transfer had gone through the next day, enough to pay off the mortgage, cover repairs, and leave a cushion for operating expenses. Caleb's mother had cried for an hour when she found out. Who was this Grizz person? She'd asked. Just someone I helped, Caleb had said, not quite lying. Now, 1 week later, He stood in the barn fixing a fence post when he heard the engines. Not one bike. 20. The Iron Wolves rolled up the driveway in formation, their bikes gleaming in the winter sun. They parked in a perfect line, engines cutting off in unison. Grizz was in the lead, as always. But beside him, on a smaller bike with custom red paint, was Raven. Caleb's mother came out of the house, wiping her hands on her apron. Caleb? What's going on? It's okay, Mom. They're friends. Grizz approached with Raven at his side. Mrs. Daniels? I'm Grizz. I'm the man who paid off your mortgage. Caleb's mother was 5'0" and afraid of no one. Mr. Grizz, while I appreciate the help, I need to know why. Nobody gives away that kind of money for nothing. You're right, Grizz agreed. I don't. I give it because your son saved my daughter's life. In my world, that creates a bond. A debt of honor. And how does your daughter feel about this bond? Raven stepped forward, pulling off her helmet. Ma'am, your son is the most decent person I've ever met. He risked his life for me when everyone else was too scared or too lazy to try. I owe him everything. Mrs. Daniels looked between them, a smile tugging at her lips. Is that so? Yes, ma'am. Well then. She turned to Caleb. I think you should take your friend for a ride. Show her the property. I'll make coffee for your associates. Grizz grinned. Coffee sounds perfect, ma'am. Caleb and Raven walked to the far pasture where his old truck was parked. The Iron Wolves stayed behind, drinking coffee and trading stories with his mother, who seemed completely unfazed by having a biker gang in her kitchen. Your mom is awesome, Raven said. She's seen worse than bikers. Try calving season. They climbed into the truck bed and sat with their backs against the cab, looking out over the snow-covered fields. I'm going back to school tomorrow, Raven said. First time since everything. How do you feel about it? Nervous. Everyone's going to stare. Trevor and his crew are going to make jokes about me getting lost. Sterling's getting replaced, which means questions and interviews, and... Hey. Caleb took her hand. You survived a blizzard. You can survive high school. We survived. Together. Yeah, we did. Raven was quiet for a moment. I talked to my dad. About college. Oh, he wants me to go? Says I'm smart enough for anything I want. Engineering, medicine, law, whatever. That's great. What about you? With the farm saved, you could go anywhere. Caleb looked out over his family's land. I'm going to state. Agricultural science. Learn how to make this place better, more efficient. Maybe expand someday. That sounds perfect for you. What about you? What do you want? Raven smiled. I want to study social work. Help kids who don't fit in. Kids like me. Kids like you. We turned out okay. We turned out great. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And you know what? I think we could turn out even better. Together. Caleb felt his heart skip. Raven Wolf, are you asking me out? I'm the daughter of a biker king. I don't ask. I claim. She turned to face him, her blue eyes serious. Caleb Daniels, you're mine now. If that's okay with you. He thought about the lonely farm boy he'd been a week ago. The invisible kid who nobody noticed. And he thought about the girl beside him, who'd seen him when no one else did. Yeah, he said, smiling. That's more than okay. She kissed him, soft and sweet, tasting like coffee and promises. In the distance, the Iron Wolves erupted in cheers. Apparently they'd been watching. Raven pulled back, laughing. My dad's crew is so embarrassing. They're family. Family's supposed to be embarrassing. True. She settled back against him. So what now? Now? Now we finish senior year. We go to college. We figure out who we're supposed to be. Together? Together. 3 months later. The spring thaw had turned the mountain roads into rivers of mud, but Caleb and Raven made the trip anyway, hiking back to the spot where they built their Quincy. There was nothing left of it, of course. Snow caves didn't survive the changing seasons. But the memory did. It feels smaller, Raven said, looking at the spruce tree where Caleb had found her. I remember it being huge and terrifying. Fear does that. Makes everything bigger. Not everything. She pulled something from her pocket. A patch, embroidered with a wolf's head. Dad wanted me to give you this. It's an honorary Iron Wolves patch. You're officially Pack. Caleb turned it over in his hands. The craftsmanship was incredible, each stitch perfect. I don't ride a motorcycle. So learn. I'll teach you. Your dad's okay with his daughter teaching some farm boy to ride? My dad's okay with his daughter doing whatever makes her happy. She kissed his cheek. And you make me happy, Caleb Daniels. Really, stupidly happy. Same, he admitted. Though my happiness comes with fewer death machines. She laughed. We'll start you on a small bike. Maybe a 250. They stood there for a while, looking at the mountains where they'd nearly died, where they'd found each other. Thank you, Raven said finally. For being brave. For being you. For seeing me when I was invisible. You were never invisible. Neither were you. I was just too scared to look. Hand in hand, they walked back down the mountain toward Raven's bike, a cherry-red Harley that her father had given her for her 18th birthday. In the distance, the Iron Wolves waited, a family of outsiders and misfits and warriors who'd found their place in the world. And now, Caleb was one of them. Not because he rode a motorcycle or wore leather or followed their rules, but because he'd proven himself when it mattered most. Because he'd walked into hell to save one of their own. Because courage, real courage, was the only currency that mattered in a world gone cold. Raven started her bike, the engine roaring to life. She handed Caleb a helmet, the spare she'd been carrying since the day they met. "Ready, farm boy?" He pulled it on, settling onto the seat behind her. Ready. They rode off together, toward whatever future waited, leaving behind the snow and the storm and the people who'd never believed in either of them. Behind them, the mountain stood silent witness to a simple truth. Sometimes the quietest people are the bravest. Sometimes the loneliest people are the strongest. And sometimes salvation comes not from the people you expect, but from the ones you never saw coming. The farm boy and the biker's daughter. Together. Against all odds. Against the cold. Against the world.